Hi, my name is John Cutterback. I'm a professor of philosophy at Christendom College. I, for a number of years, have focused my attention, my studies, on family and household, and the amazing gift that these realities are, and how we might try to rediscover, reclaim them, so they can be all that I think nature intended them to be in human life. It gives me a great opportunity in our current amazing situation with the coronavirus and all the things surrounding it to see this is a very special time as regards family and household, especially given the unprecedented way that so many families now are at home and indeed confined to be at home together. This is going to be, and already is, a real challenge for many of us. But in this challenge, there's also going to be an amazing opportunity. So I have 4 tips I'd like to give. I'm going to focus my attention on men, especially for men who find ourselves now at home for a length of time in ways that we never have been before. I have 4 tips. I'll just name them now. The first tip is to take a right attitude and a big picture vision. The second is to make a concrete schedule for our time at home, and I've got 5 key areas I'm going to suggest and address very briefly that we need to make sure we get in that schedule. The third tip is choose again to be the husband that we know that we want to be, and to take concrete steps to convey that to our wife. And finally, choose again to be a father, and take certain concrete steps to convey that to our children and act it out. So before looking quickly at each of those 4 ones, I want to just recognize to what extent this is a challenge and thus an opportunity. I think we need to start by giving ourselves permission to be having a really hard time right now. I mean, let's just look at what's going on. Of course, all the stress economically, socially, worried about our health, our own health, the health of our loved ones. There's so much there. Economically, maybe we're just lost our job. Maybe we've been asked to take our job home, and now we're supposed to be doing it online, and somehow we have to figure that out. We have to figure that out quickly. Maybe our amount of work has been diminished, and so we have to be looking for other work. At the same time, we're trying to figure out how we're going to do whatever work we do from home. How do we figure out the timing? How do we figure out a place for that? And here we are at home, where now also our wife and our children have just had their lives completely upended. They're under incredible stress, facing something that they've never faced before, and then take each of us in a context where there's so much fear, there's so much uncertainty, put us all in a little box and shake it up. And that's what we've got right now. So right off the bat, let's give ourselves permission to be having a difficult time, because it's, in a sense, it's uncharted waters for us. So it's all right. We're going to take this step by step, and we're going to be able to thrive. Because the fact is, this is an amazing opportunity, really an unprecedented opportunity. When, maybe I don't know my history well, but I can't think of a time in the last century, in any case, when so many families have been together in such a consistent daily way, and we don't know how long this is going to go on. Let's look at this and ask ourselves, not only how can we survive, but how can we thrive? So let's go to those 4 steps. The first tip was take the right attitude and take a big picture vision. I think the first key thing here in the right attitude is to have a very positive and confident, while also always realistic approach. I begin with a firm faith that at root, there's a reason for everything. And even when times are troubled like this, it's reasonable for us to look for the good within it. Even as it's not being Pollyanna, we realize there's lots of evil even that we'll have to face, and a lot of challenges. But I have confidence that there's a plan. There's something good going on here. This is going to be an opportunity if we are calm and really look with eyes to see. So we can pattern this attitude, an attitude of, we've got this, we can address this, we're in this together. Again, it's hard, But part of the reason this is going to be such an opportunity is because these challenges kind of throw us back on those basic things. It takes us back to our faith. It takes us back to our willingness to look to the good of other people. It takes us back to the conviction that no other success in life is ever as important as responding with integrity and character to whatever life throws at us. So we begin with this right attitude, taking the big picture. We can convey this by simply having the attitude. We can convey this in words, and we can convey this by acting that way. There are so many now who are taking the approach of dealing with their own fear by kind of fear-mongering and constantly going back to and repeating all the things that are going wrong and how bad it is. Again, I'm in no way suggesting we put our head in the sand. We need to be very astute, keep our eyes on what needs to be done here, and respond appropriately. But fear-mongering never helps. Fear can be more contagious than germs. Lacking in confidence and discouragement can be more contagious than germs. We need to hold ourselves responsible to change that. Let's begin with ourselves. Second tip is to make a concrete schedule. I've got 5 areas I'm going to suggest that we get into the schedule. Again, this is uncharted water. We haven't had to fit so many things into our day, all in our home. How are we going to make all these different things work? Well, let's talk about 5 key things to make sure that we're blocking in. The first is our professional work. One of the things that we're really worried about is our job, our providing. So we do need to make sure that we are setting aside the time and a space in the home, and we need to explain this to others, make it clear. This is the space I need, this is the time I need, and set that up and make sure that we're tending to it. That way, when we have done that, we'll be able to then let it go. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is to have our concern about our professional life be hovering over absolutely every moment of the day. By making sure that we block it in well, get the time and get the space that we need, that will give us the freedom then to turn our attention and to turn our heart to the things that ultimately are even more important than our profession. So we can at least try to give our best time, even if not the most time, our best time and our best energy to these other things. So again, first of all, block in the professional time. Second thing to block in, might not be a big block, but it's an absolutely critical block. Wife time, especially in this time of stress. Is it a little block in the morning? Is it a little block in the evening? Where's the two of us, where we can have real communication and listen and cry on each other's shoulder, work together. We need to have that time, and central to that is conveying to our wife how important this time is to us. So it's going to be a key part of the schedule, even if it's not a large part of the schedule. The third thing to block in is the meal time. We're going to be eating anyway. How many meals can we have in common? Maybe 2, perhaps even 3, but for sure 1. Let's block it in, and let's do it as a whole household community. Let's give it a certain formality. Let's put a certain energy in it, particularly as the man here. If we are willing to kind of step up and say, this is really important to me. I want to be together with all of you here around the table. Let's take this opportunity to reestablish some traditions or maybe start some new ones about how we do this. Everyone having his place, where we're going around the table and sharing stories. Whatever it is, different families have different ways of doing it. It is so key to family life, to household life, to civilization, that we rediscover, that we find again. Maybe that's going to be one of the biggest fruits, that we reinvest in the mealtime. Let's make a resolution right now to schedule that in and make it happen. The next step is household work. We need to block into our schedule time for household work. I'm calling it household work to distinguish it from professional work. This is a great topic. It's such a key aspect of the life and energy of a home, that we come together in certain kinds of meaningful work. So what I'm going to recommend here is choose one, maybe two, that we're going to focus on in these days that we have together. Come up with a couple projects, several smaller projects, indoor, outdoor. This time of year, outdoor would be perfect. Let's start a garden. Let's put some time into it to get together. Maybe it's just the yard, fixing things up, repairing things, making our yard be more what we'd love it to be, doing some landscaping, think in terms of beauty. Let's take it inside, what kind of things? Are we fixing things? Are we remodeling? Are we building something? Simple carpentry projects. Are we giving order to the basement? Whatever it is, this thing that we can come together as a family. Maybe it's cooking and really doing this, trying to do this together. Good work, wholesome work, not overdo it. Again, let's just choose the one or two things, and by just deciding to do that, lock it in, it's going to happen. The last thing to make sure we get in our schedule is the leisure time. In leisure, life, in a sense, most happens. Aristotle says leisure activities are the ones that most of all have meaning in themselves. In a sense, it's where we're most alive together. The most fundamental leisure activity is prayer and worship. Cult has always been the root of culture. Recommitting ourselves to cult, the prayer time, blocking it in, that rich, meaningful way of being together as a family. Think of the other ones. In different families, we'll emphasize different things. Reading out loud together is such a powerful and a beautiful one. Age appropriate, there's different ways we have to be creative. And especially if you and I are willing to get involved, even if it's just a little bit every day, we choose that one book that we're going to be doing. We choose to have story time. What about listening to great music together? What about trying to make some music as a family? Might not be great music, but it can be a great experience as a way of being together. How about a family game? Family games don't always go as we would have hoped, but they can always nonetheless be an opportunity to grow in character and perhaps be a whole lot of fun also. Going for a walk, enjoying nature together, if we're allowed to go for a walk, right? There's so many different things. Don't overdo it, choose a few, block it in. Okay, so those were my 5 areas as regards our second step. Remember, our second step was to make a concrete schedule with those 5 areas that we wanted to block in. Our third of the 4 steps of my 4 tips is the choose again to be the husband we want to be and to convey that to our wife. My main concrete suggestion here is go to your wife and say it. In this challenging time, I commit myself to be a better husband to you than I've been. I ask you to help me do that. Help me see how I can be a better husband to you. That's my starting point in this whole project here of our being together in the home. Wife, my dear, I begin with you. I recommit myself to this. I ask your forgiveness, and then make sure we're willing to offer forgiveness. By going explicit in this way, it's such a great way to begin again together. And again, connect that back with that we've blocked in, we've scheduled in that time. We're going to increase our communication. Right there is the heart of the matter in these relationships. Remember, any great friendship, any marriage can sway and can bend. We can do all that we can to choose that it not break. And we might find one of the greatest fruits of this time that we've been at home is that we deepen that relationship and it becomes all the more of the friendship, of the marriage that we wanted it to be. The 4th step is really to do the same thing as regards being a father. Let's take this as the special call to perhaps make explicit. This depends on the age of the children, right? You don't have to go to if your oldest child is 2, might not be conveying this in words, but then again, maybe go ahead and even say it to your 2-year-old. Daddy's going to try to be the best daddy he can possibly be. Maybe we go and we say to our children even after all these years, Daddy's still trying to figure this out. but I'm going to be doing my best, and I want you to know that you're my treasure. And I want to begin again, and I ask you to help me. Let's work on this together. And many of the concrete ways that you can work on it together is to go back to those key areas that we just blocked into the schedule. But I'm suggesting let's go ahead and make explicits to our children and have explicit in our own minds. This can be the fruit. So in sum, if we take this approach, imagine we might end up looking back on the coronavirus quarantine time and say, despite the suffering, despite even those perhaps that we might have lost, again, we're going to do all we can to stay healthy, to help others stay healthy, to do our civic duty, and to work together. But perhaps we will look back and say, an astounding fruit was that we rediscovered something about the amazing gift that our family life, that amazing little community called the household is. And we reclaimed certain key aspects of it. And we held on to it. And it made a permanent difference in all of our lives. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes with me here. If you're interested in looking at some more of the things I've done, I have a blog. It's at life-craft.org. It's also called Bacon from Acorns. And there I have a Wednesday quote and reflection I put out each week. You can also find LifeCraft and Bacon from Acorns on Facebook. And I'm going to be setting up some live videos soon to continue to address these things. I'd like to be able to go a little more deeply into those 5 different areas I suggested blocking in the schedule. We can go into that more deeply and even be able to ask some concrete questions. So again, stay safe. God bless you. Thanks for taking a few minutes with me.